as you just heard, is lack of diversity. There are several prominent African Americans who do identify with the movement. One of those is Mychal Massie, a conservative commentator, chairman of Project 21, an organization of black conservatives. He joins us on the line from outside Philadelphia. Nice to have you on the program with us today.
It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
And how do you measure this movement? How do you describe it?
How do I describe the Tea Party?
Mm-hmm.
It's a group, a movement, a wave, if you will, that was founded, brought into the present, into being, out of frustration and anger over what was taking place in the government and how many people viewed that the government was not responding to the needs of the people, the government was not acting constitutionally, that the government was overstepping its constitutional limits, and people became upset and sought an avenue of address.
And you're not a pollster, but how do you describe the size and power of this movement?
Well, I think it's something that it's something whose time has come. It's a remarkable undertaking. It speaks to the very core and spirit of what the United States was founded on: the right to disagree and protest. Indeed, Jefferson advocated that in the Declaration of Independence.
Stay with us if you would. Mychal Massie, chairman of Project 21, a black conservative organization. And we'll hear more about the Tea Party when we come back from a short break. We want your calls as well if you consider yourself a supporter of this movement. 800-989-8255. Email us talk@npr.org. Stay with us. I'm Neil Conan. It's the Talk of the Nation from NPR News. This is Talk of the Nation. I'm Neil Conan in Washington. The Tea Party may be about to claim its biggest win thus far. Florida Governor Charlie Crist, a Republican, will reportedly abandon the party to run as an independent for United States Senate. Marco Rubio, backed by the Tea Party, holds a sizable lead over the incumbent. But who is the Tea Party? If you consider yourself part of this movement, tell us what you stand for, what the movement means to you. 800-989-8255. Email us talk@npr.org. You can also join the conversation on our website. That's at npr.org. Click on Talk of the Nation. Our guest is Mychal Massie, who spoke at the Tea Party rally in Morristown, New Jersey on Tax Day. He's chairman of Project 21, a black conservative organization. And I wanted to ask you, Mychal Massie, there have been some African-American commentators who, when they hear some people in the Tea Party say, we want to take our country back, they hear that slogan and they hear Jim Crow. Is that wrong?
Well, it's certainly inaccurate. It's an inaccurate articulation of what the Tea Party people are saying. When people say we want our country back, I think reasonable minds are forced to agree with that. When they say we want our country back, what is being said is we want the will of the people based on our constitutional rights adhered to and respected. There is nothing racist about that. Indeed, again, I go back to Thomas Jefferson saying that governments are instituted among men deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Now, that's not racist. That is what the Tea Party is about. And keep in mind, the Tea Party movement started in, February, or I believe it was February of 2009, when Callie Carrinder in Seattle, Washington, who blogs under the name of Liberty Bell, became upset and frustrated with the stimulus package and encouraged people to meet at a park and voice their disgust for the stimulus package. That is how this movement got started. It wasn't based on racism. It was based on a lack of fiscal restraint. That's not racist. And anyone that says that this is a racist movement, or when they hear someone say, we want our country back, and they claim that's racist, that's simply the last best argument of someone who has no basis in fact and indeed no argument whatsoever.
Let's get a caller in. This is Jerry. Jerry with us from St. Louis.
Hey, hello.
Hi, how you doing?
Thanks for taking my call.
Go ahead.
I disagree with Mr. Newport's earlier comment about it having a lot of Republicans and conservatives in it, because the two terms are anathema to each other. I mean, there are no conservatives left in the Republican Party. The Tea Party movement is being hijacked. I mean, the early meetings that I went to had people who really did believe in the principles that were being espoused, but now there's these Republicans who are coming in who were the thieves that have destroyed our economy and almost destroyed our nation, and they're trying to take over the movement. They say the words, but I have absolutely no faith that they intend to do anything good for the country, and it's living daylights out of me.
Could you give us some examples of who you're talking about?
The meetings here in St. Louis, and I know there was one that Ron Paul came as a speaker, and it was interesting because there were people in the audience who, were still dismissive of Ron Paul. They were like, yeah, he can say those things, but it's like we'll push him aside, and we'll get our people back in. There's this identification that's coming in the Republican Party with the Tea Party movement, and it's really a stealing of the movement, I think.
Mychal Massie, I wonder how you would respond to that.
Well, I'm inclined to agree with the caller to this extent. I think the Tea Party movement should remain independent of the Republican Party and, of course, the Democrat Party. The Tea Party movement is a movement of people. It has crossed all political lines. There are Democrats, there are independents, there are Republicans, there are those that heretofore have not participated in any way in the political community that are now frustrated with the direction this country is going. And I think the Tea Party runs the very real risk of being not only misidentified, but even more egregiously being co-opted by a party that has for a long time not represented the best interest and indeed the will of the persons that send them to office. And I am, of course, speaking of the Republican Party. And I say that as a card-carrying registered Republican.
Well, is the Tea Party then going to be establishing itself as a third party?
That's a very good question. I think that the Tea Party's best course of action and what I advocate for is that we become a feeder party, a feeder system, and not seek to form a third party, nor endorse the Republican Party as such, but that we find candidates, we vet them, and we support them into office so that we start replacing the old guard. We have candidates who have been in office for a very long time, and I would argue that one of the greatest oxymorons is career politician. That is not what the intent was, but that is what it has become, and it's time that we start replacing these candidates on both sides of the aisle that do not understand the Democrats who are just openly liberal, and Republicans who believe that a cover is that have forgotten that a cover is something you sleep under and not run for when you're faced with criticism from the media.
Jerry, thanks very much for the phone call.
Thank you.
And we want to thank Mychal Massie for his time today. We appreciate it.
It was a privilege. Thank you very much.
Mychal Massie, chairman of Project 21, a black conservative organization. He joined us today from Pennsylvania. Here's some